Okay, let's see here. All right, everybody, we're here with Game Time with Doc, Lurch, and Angel. We're here every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're just getting ready to go here today. Right off the bat, for one thing, we're all three here at the very beginning of the show. That's great to see. So we had less technical difficulties than we've had in the past. It's always a good start to a show. We're going to start a sound check real quick, and then we'll get into everything. So check 1 2, check 1 2.
Check 1 2.
Check 1 2.
Checkity check.
Check 1 2.
Check 1 2.
Checkity check.
Hey, sounds good to me. A little light on Angel's side, but that's kind of normal. Okay.
Oh, can you hear me just fine?
Yeah, I can, but the check came through a little bit lighter, but I can turn you up on my Discord, and that should fix it.
Right.
Let's see, just turn you up a little bit more. There we go. There we go. That should.
Check.
I'm not doing another check, so it's okay. I just turned you up. Somebody will tell us if we have any more problems, but or they won't. They'll tell us or they won't. We are here, like I said, every Tuesday, barring, of course, real-time considerations. And as you can see on our center panel, the convention that brought us kind of together in some ways, GAME is coming up for its last ever outing in Springfield, Missouri. That's the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo, which Lurch is co-chair and electronic gaming director. I am director of panels this year and have been cross-promotions director in the past, as well as director of tabletop gaming in the past. Our previous co-host, Greg Pullman, who still does the Holdfast Brewing Company game night every third Wednesday, is currently tabletop gaming chair. All of that is happening as our final one, 14th, 15th, and 16th of October. And as you can see on the top of the website, there is a countdown timer. So we're getting really, really close to the wire. We're less than a month away. It's $10 to get in for the entire weekend. So that's one heck of a deal on a lot of gaming and nerdy fun. And we are still looking for henchmen. So if you want to be a henchman for that, then get a hold of us. Get a hold of specifically Ralphie Saeed on Facebook or in the 417 Hub on Discord. He's often there.
Hey, Doc, what's a henchman do?
Oh, henchmen. Good question, Angel. Henchmen are the lifeblood of the convention. Okay, they do anything and everything we need done in order to keep that going. They're runners. They're helpful individuals that will tell you where to go to do what you want to do. They check you in at the door. They handle any issues that come up at the convention itself. They man the different stations. They are just literally always running around doing something. So henchmen are the people that make the convention happen. We'll have several henchmen at the video game area helping Lurch out with checking out different video game cartridges and making sure that the fair use is being done with all the game consoles so nobody just hogs the console and doesn't let anybody else play. They'll do the same thing at the board game library and help you check in for your tabletop gaming. I mean, these guys are the unsung heroes of any convention. Most conventions don't necessarily like to point that out, but we value our henchmen. You get a t-shirt. You get, for every 2-hour shift that you work as a henchman, you get a ticket into a raffle drawing to possibly win a $50 Amazon gift card. And we give out two separate individuals. Nobody's allowed to win both of them, but this way, 2 people can get $50 Amazon gift cards for participating. We have some snacks and stuff in the lair just for the henchmen to come in. So as part of the group, they get fed some, in other words. You know, we make sure to have like some bottled waters and things in there so they can stay hydrated. And you get to say you were part of it. You know, you actually didn't just attend a convention, you were part of the convention, and that's a big thing.
So,
Yeah,
long answer short, henchmen are the volunteers that help us get the convention going, help us run the convention over the weekend.
absolutely, and we need more of them. So contact Ralphie or join the Eclectic Endeavors group on Facebook, and you'll hear all the announcements, and you'll hear about our next meeting, which I believe is currently set for October 3rd at the Creamery Arts Center, if I remember correctly. I'm not looking at it right now, but you can double check that on Eclectic Endeavors, or you can check the event calendar on Facebook and just look up GAME, and you should get it, or look for local events in October, and you should find it. Okay, enough about game, though. We are here, we talk about anything and everything having to do with the nerdosphere, and I've got some co-hosts that are real powerhouses in this regard. First off, Lurch, my longtime co-host, is a past master when it comes to the console gaming industry, because he has no less than 48 gaming consoles at his house and a whole bunch of TVs to hook him up to. He is the console guru. He loves console gaming, and so that's his main area of expertise. But he also happens to be a huge comic book fan. He likes to do the theater arts, stand-up comedy. I mean, he does improv. He is involved in a lot of different nerdy pies out there, and he likes to share that wealth of knowledge with you. And then our newest co-host, who's been previously was just a special guest, and I say just, but really it was a huge thing, is Angel. Angel is so knowledgeable on so many things. When it comes to stuff like kaiju movies, he knows more than I do, and he's like much younger than me. I've been watching him longer, but he knows more about kaiju movies than I do. And then he's a ginormous comic book fan and also likes to play video games. And he does, like me and like Lurch, he likes to dabble in things like design too. He has a design company called Left Claw Studios that does different design stuff for programming and everything. So yes, when it comes to nerdy knowledge, we got a pretty good triumvirate here of people that can help you out, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to jump right in. We've got a few things to talk about this week, and just to be different, I think we're going to start with Angel instead of Lurch today, because he hasn't had a chance to be the first person, and he's talking about something that's really close, a product that's really close to my heart, but it's in a little bit of legal issues. So go ahead and tell us about this lawsuit, Angel.
Yeah, so Wizards of the Coast, so I'll be calling WotC for short. WotC has sued TSR for copyright infringement, TSR being the original owner. Back in the day, the company that it was is the ones who created AD&D and, D&D in general. And so we had, right now it seems to not really be doing much, but it was trying to release a game that WotC had purchased from TSR back in the day. Dark Frontiers, A New Genesis is the name of the title of the game in question. And this is kind of supposed to be a reboot of the original Dark Frontier way back in the day. But TSR really doesn't have the rights to it anymore. So WotC is looking at it like, okay, well, you're infringing on our rights. That's one thing. But TSR is not only infringing on their rights, they're also using the old TSR logo largely to capitalize on D&D's fame to sell, and they have extremely racist undertones underneath in the playtest document. Black people have as a race, you have individual races, white people, black people. Like where your white came from also matters. So people who have a Norse background are inherently smarter than black people who
So that is some messed up shit. Holy crap.
Yeah.
This news story took a much darker turn than I was expecting.
Yes, and as you can imagine, WotC is like, this is going to do irreparable damage to us if you release this. And they're supposed to release later today. The funny thing about the playtest document is it literally said, don't show this to Wizards of the Coast.
Now, a little bit of background.
Sounds like an open and shut case.
A little bit of background to add to this. TSR is currently part of it's run by the son of the original creator, co-founder of TSR, Gary Gygax. This is Luke and Gary Gygax Jr. are part of the leadership, and as well, they also run the Dungeons and Dragons Museum.
It really is a shame.
It is a shame
how tone deaf this is, and I mean, it's not even just tone deaf. It is blatantly racist. They don't hide it. It is just blatantly racist. And WotC's argument is this isn't a property that we forgot about because WotC has had the Dark Frontier game on its website for sale for years now. It's not a dead product. They still have the rights to it. It's still being sold.
Yeah, it's not an abandoned product, so they're not free to just take it back. Like, as an example of something related, Marvel sub-licensed the Spider-Man product to Sony, but Sony had to use it every so many years or it would have reverted back to Marvel. But WotC is using it. Even if they're not remaking new stuff, they're still publishing and selling the old material, and so they are still utilizing it. They're not. There's nothing in the contract saying they have to make a new version. All they have to do is still be selling it for them to keep the product. Not like in a movie where the movie says you have to make a new iteration every so many years.
If this sounds familiar, last year, or in 2001 specifically, TSR unsuccessfully tried to sue WotC for D&D and failed. And then WotC counter-sued and won. So this is not their first tango.
Is this 2021 or 2001?
Oh, 2021.
Yeah, 21.
Okay, you said 2001. You're like last year in 2001. So I was making sure.
2021. Oh, whoops. Yeah, thank you for catching that. Yeah, 2021. So this isn't even like their first tussle, and it's just, man, it does feel like an open shut case where why are you even trying to do this? There's some part of me that's cynical and is like, well, is TSR just trying to ruin WotC at this point by using the old TSR logo that they don't have the rights for, and using a product that belongs to WotC that they don't have the rights for.
To be fair,
extremely dark and terrible, and I don't know. It feels there's a part of me that's just like maybe they're trying to ruin WotC.
Yeah, because it's like make a new game.
Yeah.
If you don't own it, make something new. You can even use very similar rules, but different art and names.
To be fair, historically, TSR as a company and the Gygax family in particular, as much as I love the Gygax family for creating favorite games, have never been really well suited to business. It has not been their forte, to do business.
I've not known, I could be wrong, but it's not the Gygax family that's good with games. It's just Gygax.
Gygax is good at designing.
Was the game creator.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Gygax was a designer, and he was the one that helped design, and Arnson did a lot of the work too. Dave Arnson and Gary Gygax were the ones that were the motive force. And Ernie and Luke were his kids, and they play tested a lot of his stuff when they were younger. And it was his ex-wife that did a lot of the business management for the company and actually sold some of the stuff off when they were in financial troubles. They have always had problems with producing too much, mismanaging expectations with the vendors, all these kind of things. Gary and Dave would have been much better if they had just stayed hobbyists and sublicensed themselves to somebody else. They needed their Bill Gates of the company. See, Bill Gates was the business-minded person behind Microsoft, which is why Microsoft went well. He was computer savvy, but his main thing was knowing business. Gary and Dave need to know business, and they don't. And that was
I mean, that was true for his father. We don't know if that's true for his son. And ultimately, this, I don't know if it's some like level of like revenge. It's hard for me to think that they're so business unsavvy that they don't even know the rights that they hold.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Well, I do know that Gary and Luke were highly upset at their mother, along with their father, when she sold off a lot of the rights in the original sell-offs. But it was the only thing that the company could do at the time.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily.
I would argue it was a good decision.
For the company, it's the only decision they had because they had run it into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good decision that they sold it off. I think that Wizards of the Coast was probably the best person to have sold, like, company to have sold it to. Now listen, I don't suck, like I don't kiss their ass, right? Like, I'm not a big giant corporate person, but in terms of like my understanding of how the history of D&D went down, D&D only got better once it got into WotC's hands.
As much as a lot of people like to blame Wizards of the Coast and say that they ruined the hobby, they didn't. They came in and they revitalized it. And look at D&D now. It is one of the biggest hobbies in the world now. And before, it was a niche thing that happened in basements and computer clubs and things like that. You didn't.
It was very niche in the past. Now it's
very, very niche. And now it's so mainstream. You've got your jocks and your cheerleaders playing alongside your nerds. It's not just It's not just the computer geeks and the thespian nerds that are doing.
I mean, shit, we're getting major action movies based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, that movie's gonna be great.
We also have major action. Have you seen the old live action Dungeons and Dragons trilogy? I have.
I actually liked them. But the problem that they had was they were not geared for D&D players. The first one especially, it was geared towards non-players to try to bring them into the game. And players hated it. A lot of players hated it because it wasn't geared towards them. But it never was. It was meant to be a recruitment video. And it did bring some players in, actually. I'll tell you that from having been a player back then. And I didn't mind it. And Justin Whalen was really passionate about the project. But Irons, who played one of the bad guys, he phoned it in. He didn't even really work at that.
Who was in the movie?
Justin Whalen, who played Jimmy Olsen during Smallville, during part of it, was the main character. Then one of the Wayans brothers was his sidekick, Snails.
2005, 2005 and 2012.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And it was.
I did watch that. Like, I watched one of them. I'm not sure which one. I remember thinking it was kind of terrible.
The ones made for TV were actually a little bit better received. The ones that went directly to Sci-Fi Channel. But that's partly, they didn't have as big of a budget or anything, but they had a little bit more heart in it as far as players are concerned.
D&D has, since WotC took control of it, like it has become mainstream, even longer than 5e. As an
Mm-hmm.
example, I was watching an interview by Matthew Mercer where he states that he got into D&D because two jock friends of his asked him to join.
Oh yeah.
You just
Like
broke
the
up.
people who were like really big into sports and stuff were
You just
like,
broke
"Yeah,
up
we
all of
play
that.
D&D." He's like, "What?"
I will.
I just think that that's like so funny.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten easier to join.
A lot of people don't realize that the third edition onward was WotC, was not TSR. TSR
Yeah.
left at the very begin, was no longer really part of it at the very end of second edition, because it was during second edition to third edition that the transition went about. So people think, fifth edition, but third edition was WotC. 3.5 edition was WotC. Fourth edition, which was often maligned, but actually was a great gaming system, and is still the second most popular in Japan, was WotC. And of course, fifth edition and now D&D 1, the new edition coming out, are all WotC. WotC has done quite a bit for Dungeons and Dragons. They've infused a lot of mainstream popularity into the game. They've made it more welcoming and cut down on gatekeeping of the game. I think that's a huge thing, is to cut down on the gatekeeping, because anything with gatekeeping I'm against. I think you need to let everybody try stuff. And
Yeah.
WotC has been really good about that. That's been one of their earmarked things. A lot of purists, nerd rage is a big thing, as we all know, and we hate anybody who wants to bastardize any of our favorite stuff. And so that's why you got a lot of people saying, "Oh, this company came in and ruined something," or "that company came in and ruined something." I'm dealing with the same thing with an MMO right now. The MMO that I play is being it's got the exclusive publishing rights sold to a company called Gamigo. And Gamigo gets a bad rep for having ruined a whole bunch of games like Arcade and Rift and stuff on the computer. But if you look at the company, every one of the games they so-called ruined were games that were about to go away because they had already died, and they came in and gave them an infusion of funds. And yes, they made them more pay to win, but it's that or it would have gone away completely. So you can't really blame a lot of the trashing of a new company for things when you don't know the whole history. And WotC actually did some good for Dungeons and Dragons. The only thing that some people, and you can agree with this on one hand, is WotC, the people in WotC are not as much gamers as the people of TSR were. They are gamers.
I don't know if that's true.
I won't say that they're not gamers,
I've
because
been watching a lot of WotC videos, and it honestly feels like every single person that is like a main designer for Dungeons and Dragons specifically are absolutely gamers.
Let me change what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're not gamers. I'm not exactly saying that right. It's not that they're not gamers. It's that TSR were just gamers. They didn't know business. WotC remembers that although it's a game, the only way it's going to stay out on the market is if they market it properly.
Yeah.
And that is the important difference, because, yeah, you're right. Chris Perkins is absolutely a gamer. You could name any of them, and they're definitely gamers. So you're right. I misspoke originally. It's not that they're not gamers. It's that they're not just gamers. Gary Gygax was a brilliant gamer and game designer. Dave Arneson was a brilliant writer and game designer. They were not businessmen. Chris Perkins knows how to run his department, and he knows how to do the business side of being one of the chief developers of Dungeons and Dragons.
Anyway.
The difference.
Anyway, we're about 28 minutes in.
Yeah. So we're gonna
And
probably end this.
we've been off topic for the last 10, I think.
We didn't get a lot of
Okay.
topics this week though, so we're good. We weren't actually completely off topic because the whole thing was kind of
I
interrelated.
mean, it was all Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean, you know what I mean. The
Yeah.
story was about
And that's
the
part of
former
it.
owner, the son of the former owner of Dungeons and Dragons, in this other game, trying to make a
Publishing.
really awful racist version of it and come back.
Right.
Which,
And it happens to be my
God.
favorite sci-fi game of all time.
Last week we were talking about whether or not it was racist to have those space monkeys that used to be slaves, and that's
actually
an oversight.
You know,
What you're describing for this is just blatantly
Lurch,
that's just
on purpose.
One is an oversight, one is, but you're right. Like, once they had to, like, put a stop on this, they already.
And Lurch wasn't in on the conversation. He doesn't know, but those racist monkeys from Dungeons and Dragons and Starjammer are from Star Frontier. They were modified from Star Frontier.
Yeah.
So it's directly related.
So
anyway, we're going to move on.
Wizard of the Coast is actively using content of the franchise, just in a different one.
Yeah, they adopted that.
No. The original Dark Frontier wasn't racist.
No, it wasn't.
And they changed the name to Hado Z. They changed the backstory. I think that they were just going for we'll make this race a slave to get people to feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And it backfired.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious. So like visually, they're the same race, but technically they're not the same race.
Right.
Gotcha.
Because one's a fantasy race and one is a technical race.
Anyway.
But anyway, we're going to move on to Lurch's first topic now, which is Tokyo Game Show 2022. Another game show. We're just getting those left and right, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of stuff right now. Tokyo Game Show, and I haven't even had time to watch everything that they put out. I just haven't had the time to. But
who has
they had. I did watch the Xbox showcase, and then I grabbed this IGN article that goes over like all the big things that they brought up. So I thought I'd just kind of go through here real quick. There's been talk about Tekken 8, which was previously revealed at the Sony State of Play a week ago, but now they showed more about it at Tokyo Game Show, where they gave an interview at IGN, describing how the upcoming fighting game will showcase. Well, they talked about the face-off with Jin Kazama and Kazuya Mishima, and they're talking about how this next game is going to be a turning point for the franchise. I'm not sure what that means. I might have to find out more from the interview. But something that's curious is they mentioned that they would consider bringing in guest characters back into the fold for Tekken, which the last time I remember a guest character in Tekken was Tekken 3. And that was Gon, the little yellow dinosaur.
Yeah, he was
he's from a manga series.
Yeah. I do feel like a lot of these games are still like game developers are starting to learn that we have a new generation of people who probably aren't like D&D. A lot of like these fighting games are making these games easier and simpler for people to get into because there's just this bar of really good players, and no one can really seem to breach that ceiling once there's just a certain amount of players holding other people back. And that's like not ultimately fun. So like I see a lot of these things like making these games a lot easier to play, which I agree with personally.
Yeah, I'll say from personal taste, I miss the days used to a lot of fighting games, at least a lot of the fighting games I played, would have a lot of extra modes in them, so you can do other things. Like they'd have mini games and like Mortal Kombat. Every Mortal Kombat for several games in a row would have some sort of a wacky mini game that you could do. Like there was a chess game where you choose what pieces, what character fits with each piece on the chessboard, and then and they have the movement, that's representative of actual chess pieces, and then whenever you get to where you're supposed to be taking out another chess piece, you have to have a match, and the two players fight with the characters, and then like different levels of pieces have like different health bars or something. So like a pawn has a small health bar and the queen has a huge health bar to work off of, so they have the advantage and are more likely to win that fight. But no matter what, you always have like a chance to, even if the piece is overtaking you, have a chance to win that conflict and keep it.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool twist.
That was Armageddon or Deception, wasn't it? One of those.
Yeah, it was one of those. And
yeah.
like they just had all kinds of extra modes. They had like story modes where you could go through and do stuff. But lately, a lot of that seems to be stripped away from most fighting games, even the franchises that did a lot of that. And it's just online matchmaking and a tower, and that was pretty much it for most fighting games.
One of my favorite fighting games from back in the day was Bushido Blade, and you and your partner could fight, and if you started a combat arena zone that you didn't like, you could, by agreement, run to one of the other zones to fight it. So it was kind of fun that the whole zone thing was interconnected. You could run from one zone to another. And that was kind of a neat little side thing. It was part of the story of the game. Also, if you were like in the bamboo forest, as you were slashing your weapons around, you would see your blades cut the bamboo down around you, and that was just kind of cool as well. I like the interaction with the environment. And you're right. You're missing some of that in newer games. They don't put a lot of those little details or extra modes in there that really drew some people.
And I partly bring that up because Street Fighter 6 is promising to have some of that kind of content, which I don't even think Street Fighter did that content in the past. So
they did it. I think Street Fighter is a good example of what I was saying before, which was these game developers are starting to realize that they need to make their games more accessible to newcomers to the field. And I think that's how they do it. Make the button like Street Fighter, put a lot of like the combos into like single, or not combos, but the specials in like single button presses now, and or like a couple button presses. And I think that's like really good to make the barrier for entry a lot easier. Yeah.
So during Tokyo Game Show, they revealed the full launch roster for Street Fighter 6. I'm not going to go through the whole list here, but the list has been revealed. So if anyone's interested in what characters are available, go check it out. They said it'll on launch day it'll feature 18 characters. Of course, you got your favorites like Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li. They're also going to include a custom character creator for World Tour mode. And there's going to be a closed beta in October. At least they're planning on a closed beta in October. And from what I've seen of Street Fighter 6, this might be my favorite Street Fighter game. I'm liking the way this one is looking and sounding more than any of the past Street Fighter games. So when I first heard about Street Fighter 6, I was like, meh. But now that I'm seeing more things about it, I'm like, you know what? This sounded like it's right up my alley. So,
you know why I think they're doing this? Personally, a personal opinion. It really feels like that, Smash Bros. Overtook, because Street Fighter 2 had the highest amount of console or games sold over arcades, consoles, everywhere, and just Smash Bros. Ultimate alone busted those sales, and it's now the single most sold fighting game. And, Street Fighter's like, man, are we just out of touch? I feel like that's the conversation the developers had. It's like, are we just that out of touch?
Yeah, for real.
And Street Fighter was one of my favorite franchises. I loved it. We've had this discussion before, Lurch, that I used to be a competitive level player of Street Fighter and Street Fighter 2. So, and I'm really excited, about 6 just because of the create your own character mode. That is something I've always wanted in Street Fighter, is some kind of create your own character thing. So it'd be interesting to see how they implement that.
Yeah. So we'll keep on moving. Resident Evil Village is got some DLC that they say it will say goodbye to the Winters family. I guess Ethan Winters has been the main character for the last couple games. But apparently this DLC coming out will be the final chapter of him in the franchise. Also some more information about Resident Evil 4 remake being in development for PlayStation 4.
A lot of people are excited about that.
Yakuza series has been rebranded to be, the new title is Like a Dragon. And they revealed 3 new games for the series.
Wow.
Yeah. And part of it is like they're putting out games that have Like a Dragon and then some other characters. Instead of being about Yakuza, I guess, there'll be other characters that are going to be featured. Sonic Frontiers, they showed off Super Sonic, which this is a game that when it first showed, I was like when I first heard it was coming out, it was going to be like an open world Sonic game. I was like, yes! Then I saw some gameplay and I went, oh, this sucks. But it's been getting better and better every time I see it, and now I'm like pretty hyped for Sonic Frontiers. Keeping on moving. Suikoden highlights the return of classic Konami games. This was an announcement I don't remember, but Suikoden and Suikoden 2 are getting HD remasters from Konami. Star Wars Eclipse is going to merge action-adventure with the fundamentals of Quantic Dream games. If you're not familiar with Quantic Dream games, they made Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and what was that? Detroit Become Human. So most of their games are very story-heavy, cutscene, decision-based. But apparently their Star Wars game they're working on is going to have more action-adventure than their past game as well. We'll see how that goes.
Well, their other games are like big computer-based choose-your-own-adventure games, almost.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of their games. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with Star Wars. I know that their brand of game design is very niche.
Yeah, it's not one that appeals to me, I know, but different people like different games.
Niche, yeah. Keep an eye on that. It's probably going to be a long ways out, though. I wouldn't expect it coming out until like 2025 or more. They haven't said anything, but that's just my expectation. They're a small team. They take a long time to make games. Apparently there's a game called One Piece Odyssey that I have not been keeping up on that is got a release date for next year, January 13th. About the only thing I know about One Piece is that it's the longest running manga of all time, or longest running anime of all time, or something like that.
Yes, we recently rewatched the whole thing, and it took us roughly 4 months to do so.
Yeah, it's a long-standing one. It's not one I'm a huge fan of, but it is a long-standing one.
Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak adds 3 new monsters, which is a pretty big deal for a Monster Hunter game. Violet Mitsune claiming Espinas and Risen Camelios. I missed out on Monster Hunter Rise. Gosh, my throat. There's a new game called Wo Long Fallen Dynasty that I talked about a few weeks ago, and they showed some more stuff about it. You can create your own custom character. This team made the Sekiro games. They made I think there's 2 Sekiro games, or was it Neo? Actually, yeah, the Neo games. Either way, they made a couple of Japanese-based action-adventure combat games that are like really difficult. Team Ninja. A long time ago, they made the Ninja Gaiden games. They are going to. They got a new game coming out. They're describing it as kind of a Souls-like style game that is in Japan. Or not Japan. I'm sorry, China. During the Three Kingdoms era. So they're talking about dealing with the Han Dynasty or whatever. It looks really cool. It's gonna have a custom character thing. They talked about how since this game is gonna take place, I watched a video on it. They talked about how since this game is gonna take place in a historical era, they felt more comfortable with letting the player character be more custom instead of it being a designed protagonist for the story of themselves, because you are fitting with this world, and most of the story is about the world around you. So that was a interesting, like, behind-the-scenes kind of information that the developers provided today, or this weekend. I missed this one here. The Awakener Risen is a new RPG from a Chinese indie developer. The developer is called Tanner Games. It's gonna have 4 classes: Warrior, Sword Dancer, Soldier, and Lancer. Adventure born in the Third Era, sets off on an exciting adventure in the world of Sylvalond. But I don't know. It's said to come out in 2023. Exo Primal got a story trailer. If you don't remember what Exo Primal is, it's that game that when it first was showcased, everyone thought was Dino Crisis because it had a red-headed lady and a bunch of dinosaurs they were fighting. But has some weird displacement of dinosaurs falling out of the sky and people using mech suits to destroy them. Doesn't look super exciting to me, but Deathloop is coming out to Game Pass. In fact, I think it just got to Game Pass today, maybe. But yeah, it's finally coming to Xbox. A game that was developed by Xbox that was PlayStation exclusive for a year and is now coming to Game Pass.
What is up with Deathloop? I've not played it. Have you played it?
I've not played it, but I've watched a bunch of footage of it. You get a lot of recognition for originality in the gameplay and stuff. The premise of Deathloop is you play a guy, you're like some kind of a badass merc of some kind or whatever, and you wake up on this island, and before long you figure out you're in a time loop. Every time you die, you wake back up on the same beach. And there's like 8 lunatics on this big island, and you are trying to kill all 8 of them within a 24-hour period, because whether you live or die, by the end of the 24-hour period, the day resets again. And so you think that the key to getting off this island is by killing all 8 of these leaders that are all lunatics of different kinds. You get like different weapons and power-ups and things like that, and then when you die or when time gets reset, you sometimes can carry over some of the things that you acquired, but not everything. And you have to try to figure out like a combination of things of like figuring out what people's schedules are, because they'll have like a routine that they're doing because it's repeating the same day. So you got to try to figure out what order to kill everyone in, how to best try to kill them so you can get to all of them before the time runs out. And while all this is going on, there's one other character in the game who is also stuck in the time loop with you that remembers the previous days. And she's hunting you down and killing you. So you got to try to do this while being hunted. And it's possible for other players to take over the other character. So other players can jump into your game and be hunting you while you're trying to beat the story.
So you buy it all
Yeah. So if you run into her, you need to try to kill her so you can continue your job. It's a really cool premise. I think you dig it, like the art and like some of the powers and stuff. They look really cool. There's like teleportation and telekinesis and things like that in combination with all kinds of different weapons. So it looks like it could be a really cool game. I just never got around to playing it. It's one of those kind of situations. But it's now coming to Game Pass this week, it says. So I'll have to check on what the actual date. But then they also revealed an update for Forza Horizon 5. They announced Blaze Blue, Cross Tag Battle, Guilty Gear Strive, which is a couple of anime-style fighting games. Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch remastered, they announced for Game Pass. They're also working on a remaster of the second game, which I forget the title of the second game. And I think that's it. I think that sums up the big things from Tokyo Game Show.
That's it for this article, anyway.
What's that?
This article, anyway. That's it.
Yeah. For this article. So yeah, quite a few things coming out. The Tokyo. I watched the Xbox event, and a lot of it was in Japanese. Most of it was Japanese. I had to watch, read the subtitles.
Yeah.
That Blue Long one, I think, of the games that aren't sequels, I think that Blue Long one is the one that has me the most interested. Anyway.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's a lot of news in the console department. Now, let's talk about Warner Brothers again. Warner Brothers, of course, has been in the news quite a bit for their recent merger with Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery is no longer Warner Brothers Media, and Zaslav has taken over. Well, it's also looking like there's a rumor that Warner Brothers might actually be setting up for a merger with another gigantic entertainment studio, and that studio is NBC Universal. This comes from Giant Freaking Robot, is the place where this leak is coming in. And, of course, they do a lot of stuff in the media area. They like to leak stories. Now, as with any leaker, you never quite know what's going on for sure, if it's a rumor or if it's truth. But they're talking about some of what Warner Brothers is doing, unloading certain properties, canceling some movies and stuff, might be in preparation to link up with NBC Universal to make a big media giant to try to compete with some of their other opponents in the media field. NBC, of course, is one of the longest running media networks for TV that has been out. It's one of the original three in NBC, ABC, and CBS for television, and then Universal Pictures was the movie arm, and then they merged way back, and now it's looking like they may try to combine with Warner Brothers Discovery, which would bring some other things into the fold, including NBC Universal. They own, of course, what is it, Paramount Plus Peacock, and they also have like a 33% share in Hulu. So they're 1/3 owners of the Hulu network. It's the CEO of Comcast, which is one of the owners of it, could see the plummeting stock of Warner Brothers Discovery and make a move to combine it with NBC Universal. This would create one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world and would bring together many streaming apps that would have more than enough content to rival its biggest competitors. And of course, its biggest competitor is Netflix. Netflix has had some ups and downs lately, but they are still the biggest competitor when it comes to straight streaming. But taking and combining HBO Max, Discovery Plus, and Hulu, and Peacock, you're starting to basically get big enough to shoot down the whale that is Netflix.
Do you think Disney would let that happen? Because Hulu's owned by Disney.
Well, Hulu is partly owned by Disney. 33% of Hulu.
Hulu is entirely owned by Disney.
No, 33% of Hulu is owned by NBC Universal.
That's not a majority, is it?
No, it's 1/3 share. They are partly owned by Universal. So it's kind of up in the air. And Disney does not own the other 67%. I think that's split between them and another company. So
no, Walt Disney owns 67%.
Do they?
Yep.
Yeah. NBC wouldn't have any say at all about being into Peacock, and I don't think Disney would.
Then they might not allow it. So the Hulu part might not be a big worry, but still, with HBO Max and Peacock coming together with NBC Universal, it would still make a heck of a media giant.
Yeah.
Because Peacock has
come
been
down
growing.
to 3 companies.
Yeah, Peacock has been growing pretty steadily, and of course, NBC Universal owns certain properties.
I am not. I am unfortunately not opposed to that. Almost. Like on one hand, the obvious bad things, but on the other hand, we had just so many streaming services.
I would like them to spin out
that people want to watch, and reducing the amount of streaming services we need to actively pay for is a much better option than just having a million streaming services that we all have to participate in to watch the show.
I like to have options, but I don't want that many options, because if you have that many options, you're either paying out the nose to have everything, which is kind of what I'm doing, or you're missing out on some of your favorite stuff because it happens to fall on one of the networks you're not getting. So they do need to trim it down. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, what's great about our existing platform, our system though, of the different streaming services at least, is, if you can change it out. So you can be like, well, I'm going to subscribe for Netflix for 2 months. Now I'm going to drop it and subscribe to Peacock for 2 months. If you really need to be financially conscious. If it keeps getting narrowed down more and more, and we only have 2 streaming service options, then their need to keep their prices competitive is going to be getting narrower.
Yeah.
And,
we have the Netflixes of the world, we have the Disneys of the world, and we have the HBO WB stuff of the world, right? Which is a powerhouse in and of itself if they ever decided to drop Cartoon Network and Adult Swim on their own.
Yeah, but I'm saying this HBO Max, WB, Discovery, if this all ends up merging in with NBC and Legendary, then that means Discovery streaming service, HBO Max, and Peacock are all 3 owned by the same company. Whether or not they also own a third of Hulu, or whatever happens with Hulu. But they end up merging all those 3, then even if they don't, either way, it's making it to where it's reducing how many companies, how diverse the ownership is of the streaming services.
The idea of that is yes, that's true to a point, but even whenever in the beginning of the streaming services, whenever Hulu was the first competition to Netflix, that was still a competitive thing. Even as long as it's not one, it can still be a competitive.
Well, the anti-monopoly rules keeps it from being just one. But
yeah, we've got 3 companies that will now. Honestly, I think the competition is going to be more staunch because with better options between all 3 of them, all having really good content, then now you have them competing for each other for everybody's finite time.
The thing you're going to end up with.
At that point, people would be incentivized to even try them because it's just one streaming service instead of 8 billion.
Yeah.
You're actually more likely to, with only 3 or 4 choices, you're more likely to settle on just 1 or 2 choices instead of trying to get every small choice.
Yeah.
You're not spinning it out.
In terms of convenience, I would love to be able to watch everything in one place. I'm just at the same time I don't want to.
I'm gonna go work. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of convenience, I can see where you're coming from there, Lurch, because let me fix it so I'm on the 2-hoster until he comes back. Because yes, it would be easier just to subscribe to one and get everything we want. But then you have no competition, and that becomes a monopoly, and we don't want that. So and just two giants really could be in cooperation with each other, and you don't end up. So it's good
Yeah.
to have at least three. I
Yeah, I
think
was gonna
three
say,
or
I
four
think the
is good.
minimum has to be 3 competitors.
Three or
to,
like with the standard D&D game, 3 to 5 is the recommended party size. We need
Yeah.
3 to 5 in order to make it a good, viable environment. But once you get past like 6 or more, you're starting to thin it out too much, and then it's like too niche. And sure, you get to order a la carte on the menu that way because you can get just the Sci-Fi Channel or just Cartoon Network when you start getting the
Yeah.
little ones,
as far as I know, I still can't get the Sci-Fi Channel anywhere.
right?
Not legally.
Yeah, that sucks. Well, you can get it through Sling TV, which is also an option. I wanted to watch. What was it called? Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. I wanted to watch Adult Swim, and the only place you can watch Rick and Morty is by a live streaming service that live streams specific channels, and that's terrible.
Yeah. Rick and Morty is on Hulu, isn't it?
No, yeah, it is, but new episodes only come out on Adult Swim, and it isn't until the season is over, 2 months after the season is over, that it'll appear on any streaming services.
Oh.
Yeah.
TV is the only way you can watch it, and you can only watch it as it's airing on.
And yeah, there are some things that are even contractually done that way. Like there was a talk back when Sonic 2 came out, the movie, that it was not going to go to any streaming service. What
movie?
Sonic 2, originally they were talking about not letting it go to a streaming service, but they backtracked and did. But it was originally there was talk about not wanting to do it, and that would have been terrible. I'm glad. I mean, I own it, but still, I went ahead and bought the Sonic 1 and 2 combo pack on digital. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of controversy there. There are some actors that are getting really up in arms about their contracts for stuff when during COVID stuff was going direct to stream and they were losing out on their box office shares that they negotiated in their contract because of the fact that the streaming was diluting their profit. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
About that when it was happening.
That was one of the major hooks in Scarlett Johansson's craw. She didn't like the fact that she was losing out on money there.
Yeah. I'm glad they got that fixed and they got that resolved so that both parties are satisfied.
Yeah, because we like our movies. We like our streaming services, but there are some things you want to see on the big screen.
COVID was a weird, like that was a weird experiment for online movies being released same day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it, by the way. I do. I like it being released so I can see it at home on that day.
I loved it during COVID.
It is just so much cheaper for a movie that I want to see that I don't want to spend like $50 for all of my family to see. You know, and I have a young girl. You know, I want to be able to watch stuff with her that I don't have to take her to a theater for.
Especially during COVID.
That's such a convenient thing. I really don't. I think theaters should still be a thing, but I also feel like movies definitely need to be released for at-home releases when everybody else is watching it.
Or you know, or like I like the policy of no more than 45 days from its theatrical release before it makes it into a streamer.
Well, see, that is, I guess, okay, but if you want to watch a movie without spoilers, you kind of like have to watch it like when it is releasing.
Yeah, but it's not always going to be. Yeah.
Sure, but you could. I mean, like if they did want to, they could. So it's not like there's like an inherent universal law that says we can't we can't stream a movie and have it in theaters at the same time.
It's just that the profitability of the live movie goes so far down that the companies that make the movies don't make their box office returns because they don't get as
Well,
much from stream as they do from the box office.
a lot of that issue I feel like is because they weren't formatted, like contracts weren't written with streaming in mind when they were making those movies. A lot of because like we do know that there are shows like on Netflix and stuff like that that can turn a profit, and like movies that can turn a profit, and it's just feeling like they're choosing not to
Yeah,
for old school reasons.
yeah, it is something to take into account. But anyway, so that was the big thing is the leak that we might be getting another mega network. Now, take it with a grain of salt because a lot of these things are just rumors that come out. We've heard all kinds of different rumors, like for instance the up and down rumors about whether what's his name was going to be Superman again or not. Henry Cavill. It's been on again
Yeah.
again, and all this stuff is take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. You
Um,
know, I recently saw a joke that I then realized a slightly variation on the joke where, like, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, said in his promotion for when he was announcing that he was playing as Black Adam, he said the power shift of the DC universe is going to change, and I think he was pretty close to right. The power shift of the controlling properties of the DC universe certainly changed.
it's changing, yes.
Uh,
Uh, and The Rock has got all kinds of really heavy plans because he still says he solidly wants to send the DCU up against Marvel.
Yeah.
That's his ultimate goal is to try to convince that to happen. And it happened in comic books before, so there's always the chance that we'll get at least one crossover like that somewhere in the future. If anybody's stubborn enough and powerful enough in Hollywood to do it, The Rock is probably one of them.
The Rock is one of those people who I really did whenever he started like being like really as an actor. My first thought was he's a wrestler, and wrestlers really never truly broke out into like AAA actor status after being wrestlers. But man, he has proved me wrong. He's like one of my favorite actors now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's the thing. There's a few of those cross-genre people that you underestimate initially, like Will Smith. Started out as a rap singing kid and becomes a superstar action actor and producer and everything. The Rock starts out as
And the ultimate thug life at award shows.
right. Arnold Schwarzenegger was Mr. Universe, and then he became an actor, and then he became a governor, and now he's an actor again. I mean, there are some people that do the transition well, and then there are some people that it's lip service. They're just trying to get into as many pies as possible, but they're not really good at it.
I feel like the environment for actors was different before Dwayne Johnson like joined the scene as an actual actor, because people like Hulk Hogan were in a lot of movies, but he always played his caricature, and that was like the way that most wrestlers or like cross genre actors would do. Is like they would play a caricature of themselves, like or the character that they were when they were that person.
Or they
A
literally play it
porn
themselves.
star that's appearing in a PG-13 movie is going to come on, and everybody's going to acknowledge her as like someone extremely sexy, and she'll have that like persona, supermodel stuff like that. They never like the roles that they were cast for was always themselves because that's how they're acknowledged. And I feel like Dwayne made it to where he was like, I want to play this role, and I don't want to be Dwayne Johnson, or I don't want to be The Rock. I want to be Dwayne Johnson, and because he did that, it paved the way for other wrestlers and like-minded actors to really follow
Yeah.
things like that.
John Cena has gone on record. I've seen him in an interview talking about how The Rock, how Dwayne Johnson really paved the way for his own career to get into the movie.
I haven't seen that, but I can imagine that being the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was asked about, because long before John Cena got into acting, he was criticizing The Rock for spending too much time acting and away from the ring.
Right.
And he's like, "Come on, man, you're supposed to be a wrestler. We're out here every day working on this, and you're gone for months at a time." He's like, "But now, he's like, I realize now, I was being an idiot. I didn't know any better, back then. And now, now that I'm on the other side, and I realize you can't wrestle when you're filming a movie, because if Rob Van Dam or Triple H knocks my nose all the way over here Thursday night, that's 2 weeks of filming we can't do, and that's 200 people that are supposed to be on set that aren't able to work."
Right.
There's a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder, and he's like, I didn't get it back then, but now I appreciate that, what Dwayne Johnson did really paved the way for me to be able to do what I did for my career, and so many others in wrestling.
And athletes of different types have been crossing into movies a long time. Bubba Smith, O.J. Simpson, Andre.
I don't know, that's the best example.
But they did. I'm not saying they're good examples, but they've been doing it. Andre the Giant. I mean, Hulk Hogan, like you mentioned.
Will it be controversial if I said that O.J. Simpson, I think you're right about that. There's only one show I've seen of him on, and he was there in a courtroom acting his ass off.
But they've come into sports and sports announcers and stuff like Steve Ditko and people like that have always tried to dabble in movies with different amounts of success. Andre the Giant, if he had lived longer, probably would have done real good because he was just such a endearing character. For instance, his role in the Princess Bride was
Andre
phenomenal.
the Giant did a great job acting before Dwayne did.
Yeah.
As the Giant from
Princess Bride.
The Princess Bride. Yeah.
He was phenomenal.
Which, by the way, I used to follow wrestling quite a bit whenever I was a kid, and Andre the Giant was easily my favorite wrestler of all time. And he's the only wrestler pop figure I have, and he's a part of my kaiju section of pop figures.
Wow. He ranks into your kaiju collect. Oh my God, that's big. We know how you are about kaiju, so that's huge.
I love Andre the Giant.
He is, honestly, of the entire movie of The Princess Bride, which is full of great characters, he's my favorite. I mean, and that includes Mandy Patinkin's Inigo Montoya. But Andre's character is just great. Fezzik is a great character. And Andre the Giant is also legendary in Hollywood for being one of the nicest sportsman-going actors of anybody they ever worked with. I
remember hearing this interview from the I believe it was the director of The Princess Bride. They were out drinking one night, and the night after, because he was notorious for this. The night after he went on set, and he farted for roughly 45 seconds. This deep baritone fart.
I think it was 16 seconds, but it was.
Oh, was it? Yeah, it was a crazy amount, and it was like, and the director was like, "Are you okay?" And he says, "I am now, boss." Oh man, I fucking love that guy.
It's funny because if you've watched any of Young Rock, and I didn't watch a whole lot, but even though it's mostly dramatization, Andre the Giant was one of the figures that helped raise Dwayne Johnson. He was part of his extended wrestling family. So it kind of makes sense that such a great character like Andre the Giant is spiritually succeeded by Dwayne Johnson as
I could be wrong. I think Andre the Giant died before Dwayne Johnson was a wrestler.
No, he did before he was a wrestler, but Dwayne Johnson was a son of a wrestler, and he grew up around wrestlers. And Andre the Giant was one of the ones that was like an uncle to him. I think he died before Dwayne actually entered the ring, but Andre is portrayed as one of his uncles in Young Rock, and that's supposed to be, although dramatized, it's supposed to be autobiographical. So I don't know how much of that is completely accurate and how much of that is dramatization. But it would be interesting if it's true, because they're so similar as far as people's stories about how nice they are and how great they transition from wrestling to acting, even though Andre didn't get a chance to do much more than Princess Bride. Anyway, we're going to get off of this subject and go on to the next one. We're back over to Lurch because Angel didn't really have another topic for this week, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
We have a bunch to still go over when we get into media and stuff too. So we are now talking about hackers, I think.
Grand
Theft Auto 6.
So if you didn't hear, some hackers attacked Rockstar North and stole and released about 90 videos of in-development footage for Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, the FBI is investigating the hackers. And also the U.S. Department of Justice is getting involved. It sounds like the same group also recently hacked Uber.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They said that Uber said in a statement recently, we believe that this attacker or attackers are affiliated with a hacking group called Lapsus, which has been increasingly active over the last year or so. This group typically uses similar techniques to target technology companies, and in 2022 alone has breached Microsoft, Cisco, Samsung, Nvidia, and Okta, among others. Wow. Rockstar Games has added, there are also reports over the weekend that this same actor breached video... there are also reports over the weekend that this same actor breached video game maker Rockstar Games. We are in close coordination with the FBI and U.S. Department of Justice on this matter, and we will continue to support their efforts. So yeah, this is kind of a lot going on with these folks.
Wow.
The GTA 6 leak was partly the result of a Slack breach, which is an instant messaging tool that a few years ago at my employer was considered to be the product that we were going to use for instant messaging inter-office communications. But we decided not to use it because we didn't think it was secure enough.
Wow, good job.
And it was my decision to not use it. I was the one who made the deciding factor on whether or not to use it.
A lot of people do not understand how important preventative measures are. By preventing a measure, by preventing anything, you've solved 3 problems. A lot of people don't understand that. And it's like, you're invisibly fixing problems before they ever became problems, and no one gets awarded for all of that problem solving.
Yeah. Oh boy. They believe that the credentials of a contractor's account was compromised via malware that was purchased online and then used to access other accounts as well as tools like G Suite and Slack. So, Rockstar addressed the leaks, saying that they confirmed that there was an unauthorized third party illegally I'm having trouble speaking right now. That they illegally accessed its network and downloaded the materials, which were shared online The studio maintains that work on the next Grand Theft Auto game will continue as planned, though the situation will undoubtedly be a nightmare to deal with. In, in a separate statement, Rockstar parent Take-Two affirmed that it had taken steps to isolate and contain this incident. This is an article written by Austin Wood at Games Radar. So, I have not watched any of the footage. I don't want to see anything that might be. I want my first introduction to GTA 6 to be the wondrous reveal that Rockstar eventually puts out.
At the same time, a lot of people have seen it and are online saying, "Oh, it looks terrible." Yeah, it looks terrible. This is pre-alpha fucking footage.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna look fucking terrible. Don't judge a book before it's even been written.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about this in the form of like a cartoon. Imagine walking into the writer's room and you see like panels on the wall of a few basic sketches of the storyboard of a cartoon episode and going, this looks garbage, you know, this looks terrible. I can't believe this is what this show's going to look like. It's like, you are a long ways away from being completed. This is just the building blocks of what it's going to be running on. And so, I actually I did share some footage on my Facebook, on my social media, of development footage from The Last of Us, which is, you know, regarded as some of the best looking video game graphics and visuals and everything else about the design ever made. And, you know, some of its development footage looks terrible. It looks like a PS2 game. But that's because it was a work in progress. You can't judge the Sistine Chapel on the buckets of paint that are sitting on the floor.
No. You can't. No, a more accurate description is you cannot judge the Sistine Chapel on the beams of wood that's holding it up.
Yeah.
So you don't have walls.
So, yeah, I do think though, like after I play GTA 6, if I remember it, I might come back and look at the footage afterwards just because of curiosity, and I like taking a peek behind the curtain of things that I really enjoy to see how things are made and things like that, you know. But I don't want to like spoil it in advance, you know. It's like watching the behind the scenes footage of a movie, you know. I'll watch the movie, see everything for the first time there, and then on the special features extras or on YouTube after the fact, watch the footage of Mark Ruffalo stomping around with a golf ball hanging from his head as he's acting out the Hulk sequences.
Yeah.
So, anyway, not a whole lot more to share on that, but I thought I wasn't originally going to talk about the leak, but then once I saw that the FBI was getting involved, I was like, you know what? This is developing in an interesting way, and I had to bring it up.
Right.
So,
okay.
What's our next subject, Doc?
I'm going to have to run to the bathroom, but I'm going to go ahead and let you start talking about science benefits of tabletop gaming. I know that I'm the primary on this, and we've been holding back on it, but I know it's something you guys can talk about a little bit in kind of free form while I'm in the restroom. I'm going to both mute Discord and this to make sure you guys can't hear me, but I can hear you guys.
Right. I didn't hear what he said we'd be talking about.
The scientific benefits of tabletop gaming.
I am not. I know anecdotal benefits of tabletop gaming.
You want to start on that while I pull up the article?
Sure. So myself, Lurch, my wife, and my girlfriend are all playing a D&D campaign together, and Lurch's girlfriend, Allie.
Yeah.
We're all
I was like, Squirrel? Come on.
So I only didn't mention Squirrel because she wasn't there last time, and I was literally picturing in a circle everyone that was there at the table last time. So we're all playing. I'm the DM, and man, it's been a handful of years. The last time that I played a tabletop RPG, at least, was with Lurch, Pathfinder.
Yeah.
We were playing Pathfinder together in the same group, and before that, I played in college and I DM'd a little bit in college, and like 5e has been such like a pleasure. It's been, I gotta tell you, like even my life is kind of like ups and downs, and like I was going through a valley recently, and man, the D&D has just like helped me like get out of it. I am much more productive. And I have been fixing up that basement that I was supposed to be fixing up for a year because of D&D.
Yeah.
Our room got fixed. Lurch told me to bring a couch out of me and my wife's bedroom that needed to happen for like months because of D&D. Like it's I don't want to say it's cured my depression, but I don't feel depressed. I've been enjoying having people down in my basement. I've been enjoying focusing on being able to create environments and encounters and, twist, like talk about it, just like help them with the character sheets and, just like understanding the game in general has just been such a gift in my life recently. It's been like super helpful. I don't know if you could say the same, but like I've been having a blast playing it.
Yeah. So yeah, I pulled up the article that Doc was talking about. I'm gonna go ahead and start reading off of here. It's from tabletopgamesblog.com, written by. I want to make sure I credit the author here, and they got like a works cited and everything. But where's the freaking author's name? Can I find that? Lori Trueblood. Trueblood? Can that be a real last name? Anyway. Anyway.
I mean, if she liked it so much, she changed it, probably.
Yeah. So she wrote, as a kid, family game night was a staple, and we had that one closet always seemed to be overflow with board games. As I got older, I added tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and video games. And while gaming has always been a part of my lifestyle, I never really saw it as beneficial beyond just something to do for fun. But according to scientific research, tabletop gaming is actually quite good for you. Some of the most notable benefits are lessons learned through gaming. For example, a 2011 study on the transformational power of play found that players learn about consequences and decision-making while gaming. But this understanding extends beyond the game. It is carried over into the rest of their lives and decision-making processes. Other life lessons learned from gaming include patience, critical thinking, and resilience. Gaming also teaches new skills and knowledge. There are numerous examples of game-specific educational benefits. These may range from learning geography and Ticket to Ride, ancient history and one-card wonder, or even bird habitats and wingspans. Many games also promote math and language skills. Researchers saw increased student engagement and better student performance when gaming was used in educational settings. Doctors are also looking at the power of tabletop gaming as a teaching tool. When used to teach patients about specific health conditions as part of their overall therapeutic efforts, scientists saw significant improvements in patients' health knowledge and attitudes. Additionally, participants had lower anxiety levels related to their diagnosis post-gaming. Beyond building knowledge and skills, gaming also has multiple brain-boosting benefits. For example, a 2014 Korean study found improved cognitive function and brain activity in tabletop gamers. In a study in Frontiers in Human Neurosciences found that the action of gaming actually changes our brains. Researchers found that as we move from a beginner to a more advanced player, there is a change in the volume of gray matter in our brains, particularly in the areas of cognitive function and decision-making. Now, here's something I'm going to interject with that I learned about back when I was in college is the art and I don't even think I was taught it in school. I think I learned it from a book first that I read on my own, and then it was covered in a class I took later in college. The act of learning anything, the time you spend to actively learn how to do something, besides just teaching you that skill, is exercising your brain and overall making your brain function better. Whether you're learning to play an instrument, you're learning to play a new game, you're learning a new hobby, anything you're doing that lets you take time to learn something makes your brain more active. And not only, so you're able to do other things better. You're able to think better outside of that.
So I have a real world acknowledgement of this. As a driver, I've been a driver for 10 years, but only recently have I been doing long stat runs where I'm like driving for 8, 9, 10 hours. You know, I'm listening to things and I'm not like really learning. And there's been, and it has legitimately been worrying me to this point where I just can't like remember things as crisply in the last couple of years since I started these long runs. And I was reading that like cognitive function stops when like slows down considerably when, you know, you're a long-term driver. And it's like you know, like that's an issue in truck drivers as well, which is why, you know, like they stick to like learning a language or something while they're driving. And I have been having a better a considerably better time just thinking about things or remembering words or sentences or stuff like that recently. Like in the last couple of months since we've been playing D&D, it has like legitimately like made my mind a lot sharper.
Yeah, and a lot of that's because like while you're driving, you're like listening to audio tracks of people teaching about Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, and thinking about design ideas and stuff.
I'm stressing my brain out. Like yesterday, I had I forget what it's called, but it's a dictator, an audio dictator, on my phone, and I have like all these notes of ideas that I'm coming up with while I'm like driving, and it's just like such a fantastic tool that I didn't even realize was like necessarily helping me, you know, like keep my brain active while I was driving.
Yeah, and I'm back, by the way.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I know this is primarily my subject, but it hit me. And you know, when you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go. Anyway, yeah, there's studies. People often forget that the brain is an organ, but it's also kind of a muscle. And the more you use the brain, the more it gets better at what it does. And there's been studies that show that playing cognitive interaction games like role-playing games and certain tabletop games that have thought processes other than just where do I move, increase your IQ. They increase your ability to learn, which is really all IQ is your ability to learn. It doesn't make you smarter or dumber than somebody. It just means that you're more open to the actual learning process. And that's what IQ mainly measures. So the scientific benefits of tabletop gaming, one of the big ones is just the fact that it increased your IQ. The earlier you enter into games like role-playing games and heavy strategy games and stuff, the better you are at problem solving, the better you are at conflict resolution, the better you are at out-of-the-box thinking, the better you are at teamwork. There's cooperative games out there. Lurch read the part about like Ticket to Ride and Wingspan teaching you things specific to the game, and that's very true. A lot of the school systems like Montessori and stuff that handle gifted students have been using games as a method to teach for years because you tend to retain things better if you relate it to something enjoyable in your life.
Yep.
It definitely, it's kind of like hiding the vegetables in the meatloaf to get the kid to eat the vegetables. You hide the lesson in the game to get them to eat the lesson. And it's very much a human trait that if we're enjoying what we're doing, we're more likely to focus and retain it. And role-playing games, tabletop board games, even console video games teach different concepts. I mean, console video games, for all the people who say that they're negative and they increase aggression and violence, it's actually the opposite. They lower aggression because you're getting out your aggression in the game, and they teach hand-eye coordination and timing and advanced thought processes. You think ahead 3 moves, 12 moves like a chess player in your video game, but you're going to have to do it a lot faster in a video game, because in chess, you could sit there and wait a little bit, but in a video game, you're reacting, and you got to have to both think and move. And it's true with the tabletop gaming as well. I have personally used it to counsel, professionally level counsel, autistic, ADHD, Down syndrome sufferers, people on the autistic spectrum in different parts of the spectrum. I have used Dungeons and Dragons, and I have used board games, simple to complex, in order to allow them to socialize better, because a lot of them have social anxiety elements to their disorders that makes it hard for them to pick up on social cues and to interact in a social environment. But the structure of like a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons adds rules and structure to a social setting, which makes it easier for like an autistic or an ADHD person to relate. Because one of the things they have difficulty relating to is anything without very strict rules and guidelines. And even though they're not very strict, role-playing games and stuff give a form of structure that makes them feel like there's more strict rules and guidelines, while still having the opening freedom to create and imagine. So it gives them that benefit, and they're able to socialize with other people on a much more even keel. And I have done that, like I said, in the professional setting. I've used it also in business to teach team building exercises. There are Fortune 500 companies in areas like California that hire professional Dungeons and Masters from Dungeons and Dragons to come in, people like Satine Phoenix, to come in and run seminars for their Fortune 500 companies to get their people to work better together because of tabletop gaming. Tabletop gaming has those kind of real serious long-term lasting benefits. Excuse you. Yeah, I got a little bit of a sneeze. I can relate. There are so many benefits to this hobby, and we see it all the time. I mean, me and Lurch, we talk about the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo, but a lot of people don't always hear the underlying philosophy behind Eclectic Endeavors, which is the group that puts it on. Our underlying philosophy is that there is a lot of education and real-world value in these hobbies, and that's what we're promoting by doing these. We're not just promoting nerd hobbies that we have fun with. We're promoting nerd hobbies that actually are nerd hobbies because they actually make you more of a nerd in the classic sense, as in somebody who thinks, and it doesn't just react with their muscles and stuff, but you think as well. And that's the benefit of this. People go on to actually get careers in these different hobby things, where before, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, somebody who was doing some of these things would not necessarily think of making a career at it, and they end up flipping burgers or just spending time in a cubicle somewhere. Now are finding that they're designing props for movies, and they're doing professional level makeup for movies and stage shows. They're writing their own comic book and publishing it. They're going into voice acting for cartoons or video games. They're becoming stand-up comedians and actors themselves. They're designing video games as programmers, or they're running an independent Kickstarter campaign for a board game they just came up with. Because these games are pushing people to create and to grow artistically as well as intellectually. It's one of the few things out there that combines art and science. And art and science use the two different sides of the brain differently.
I mean,
but
when you
this
think
is
about it, at
both.
the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons is a game of math and improv.
Right. That's absolutely correct. In fact,
that is 100% it.
And then the classic Dungeons and Dragons, especially, because you had to have almost an advanced degree in calculus to handle some of the math in earlier D&D editions.
Yeah, I read some of the. Go ahead.
No, you go on ahead.
I was gonna say I've done some of the math and like read some of the earlier rules, and like the fireball spell used to like you have to do like the math of the volume to spread it out if you cast it in like
if
a
it went
hallway
around
or
a
something.
corner or something, yeah.
I'm glad they simplified it for the modern ones because that was a lot of extra work.
Right. Well, that's because the game was targeted at nerds back in the day, and now we target it to everybody, and that's okay because it turns everybody.
I feel like. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to interject before we moved on to another point.
But
I feel like going from AD&D, which had all this math, and it had like a lot of improv too. But I feel like the less math we had, the more improv we had to have to like make it up for it. So there's like a lot more theater of the mind going on whenever you're not doing the math to detail every detail.
Yeah.
It does
so
help.
I feel like we're like D&D now would breed more actors than it would mathematicians anymore.
That's true, but then again, since it originally was targeted towards mathematicians, it didn't have to necessarily breed them as much. But in a lot of ways, though, the game itself is turning more regular people into thoughtful, artistic people. They are becoming people that understand both scientific method, whether they literally use the term and stuff, but they understand more of the scientific method, A plus B equals C, and, come up with a theory, test the theory, prove the theory. And artistic inspiration, where you're designing something completely new and creative, whether you're drawing or writing or acting something out. And it brings those two together in a mesh.
I'm sorry, go on. You go ahead and talk. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay, so whenever you pause, I think that's okay for me to like go in, and then you can do it on like.
But you gotta remember there's a slight delay for you probably, yeah. But yeah, it's a mesh, and I think that helps the mesh of the cerebral cortex work together. Right and left sides of the brain come together, and they bridge that gap so much better. Go ahead. D&D, for the first time, and I want to say probably 4 years, I've been drawing. They're terrible, but I've been enjoying it. Like, every time that these people have a fight, I like to draw some aspect of the fight that really struck out to me, and our bard wrote a couple actual real-world songs about the adventures that they had. I do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I've done arts and crafts for the first time in like years, like even longer than I've drawn. I cut out little craft figures so that they had like little mechanical crafts they could write in. So I don't know. It's just it's crazy. I'm turning my basement table into a like gaming table. We're putting slide out drawers in it so they have a place to put their books, and like I already put in cup holders. It's just like there's this like crazy amount of like
motivation
stuff that motivation to do things that I always wanted to do, but had no reason to do. And now people are actively hanging out at my house playing D&D on my table, and I'm like, okay, well, this table isn't doing it anymore. You know?
Yeah. We're actually getting real close to the end of the show today, and this is a big, deep topic, so we can revisit it at a later time. There's just so much involved with it. That's why we've put it off the past few weeks, because we've had so much other stuff going on, and there's so much to this topic that we could spend more time on it for sure. But this has affected all of our lives. We can all agree on that, and it's just getting better and better. But we're going to move forward. I'm going to give my my From the Vault recommendation, and then we're going to go into media. And we're going to speed through media this week, so we're not going to go into a lot of detail because we've only got about 16 minutes left. So, really, my From the Vault, I talked about it last week that it was going to be my From the Vault this week, is the original Willow. Okay? Probably one of the best movies that came out in a long time. It's Val Kilmer. It's I can't think of his name right now, but the dwarf character, I can usually think of his name all the time, but right now he just slipped my mind. But
isn't it something like? Isn't it something kind of interesting, like something Warlock or whatever?
Warwick Davis. Thank you. Warwick Davis. Yes, Warwick Davis, who's been in all kinds of things, TV series, movies, and he's just a great actor. I mean, he played Professor Flitwick in Harry Potter. He's was Willow, which probably is the movie we're talking about right now, and you can watch it on Disney Plus. Willow is a phenomenal movie about a dwarf type character. I don't remember the actual name of the race that they're called, but they are the slang for them is a peck. In fact, one of my best friends growing up's brother, his nickname was Peck after this movie. He was aspiring to be a sorcerer, and he was good at sleight of hand. He did sleight of hand tricks in his village, and he wanted to be the apprentice to the village sorcerer. And he ends up having to go out on a journey because there's a human baby who comes into his possession because there's a prophecy that this baby will overflow this evil queen, sorceress. And so she goes to try to kill all the daughters that are born during this time period and stuff, kind of a very biblical kind of kill the firstborn son kind of thing going on because of this prophecy. And the wet nurse sneaks the baby away and ends up sending it down exactly like a biblical thing, because they put him on a section of floating drift current stuff, kind of like the basket that supposedly, I don't remember which biblical figure wasn't it Moses or whatever that went down the current of the Nile, or was it Christ? I don't remember. I don't deal with that anymore. But in my brain, I've slept since then. But he ends up going down the current and coming to the possession of Willow, and Willow's sent off to bring him back to the human world to get him to a human, and he ends up defending the child from the evil queen and becoming a sorcerer in the bargain. And the reason this is the From the Vault this week and was mentioned last week is because at D23 they showed a trailer for the new Willow series that's coming to Disney Plus, which is going to continue the story of Willow so many years later. And so before you go to watch a series, and I definitely think that the nerds out there should go watch the series, but before you do it, do yourself a favor. Go to Disney Plus and watch the Willow movie. You will be glad you did. I think Angel would agree with me on this. It looks like Lurch stepped away for a second, but you definitely agree with me on this. Willow is worth watching.
Yeah, it's a great TV show. It's one of my The Princess Bride and Willow is my wife's two favorite TV shows.
TV movies, yeah.
Or like movies. I mean,
yeah.
sorry.
But the Willow TV show, before you go to watch the TV show, you really should watch the movie so that you have a little bit of the background, and you could come up, and you'll be even more excited about the series when you do, because it is such a great series. Like The Princess Bride, like you said.
It really holds itself to time as well. I watched it recently because of my wife. Like, I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, and for the very first time, and I was surprised. Like, it definitely had the writing of its time, but it was also but like the practical effects wasn't terrible and obscene, and like the jokes that they made didn't, I don't feel like, become outdated.
Right.
There was so much value that they brought. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. Like, no matter how old Lord of the Rings gets, it'll still kind of like be a good movie because like nothing in it can be dated because it's all dated anyway.
Right. And it's relevant. And in my opinion, it's Val Kilmer's best movie. I love that movie. And so if you get a chance, nerds out there, this is our From the Vault, and it's just totally worth it and relevant now because of the series is coming out soon to Disney Plus. So just do your homework, watch the movie. You won't feel like it was a chore at all. In fact, once you start watching it, you're not going to be able to want to walk away. You're going to want to see the end of the movie. It's just so cute and endearing and fun and action-packed and funny, and it's ups, downs. You care about the characters. And that's always the good benchmark for any story, be it a movie, a TV show, or a book or a comic book, is that you start to care about the characters. Well, you care about the characters in Willow so much.
Yeah.
You really do. And Warwick Davies is he's really a great actor.
He's a national treasure.
He is a national treasure. I would agree with that. Lurch is back, but I'm sure he would agree with us. He had to step away for a second. Willow is a worthwhile movie for anybody to watch.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you've not seen it? Oh, then you're our target audience here, Lurch. Go to Disney Plus. Watch Willow. I rewatched it just last week. I'm thinking after talking about it, Angel and his wife might end up rewatching it again soon as well.
Sure,
too.
yeah, it's been about 2 or 3 years since I've seen it.
Yeah, if you recommend it, she'll probably say yes.
I figured since I hadn't seen it and I want to see it, this is a good opportunity for me to take a quick restroom break.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we didn't spoil anything of it really. We gave over the basic plot, but we won't go over it again just so you can hit it fresh.
Yeah.
But watch it and let us know next week.
I'm sure that if you asked, a good opportunity to go and watch it with us, you know.
Yeah, because
you absolutely could if you wanted to.
You and Allie and him and his wife, yeah, you whole group of you could watch it like pre or post D&D game maybe. It gets you in the mood for D&D too. It really does. It's a D&D kind of movie. It is.
It might be difficult to fit that into the.
It might be. Yeah, I know how scheduled it
is.
I know how scheduled it be. But maybe meet up a day before D&D or meet up a couple days after D&D and do it.
Sure.
It might be worth it. I think you'll be glad you did. And for someone who's seen the movie, Angel and his wife especially will get to enjoy that look of wonder on your face as you watch the movie, because it's always nice to see somebody experience a movie of this caliber for the first time when you've enjoyed it for years. It's like watching somebody see the
Hopefully it goes better than Labyrinth.
Well, it's like somebody who sees the first...
I kept hearing about how amazing Labyrinth was, and I fucking hated that movie.
The David Bowie Labyrinth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched it, coincidentally, I watched it like 2 weeks after he died, and it wasn't, I already had planned to see it because it was going to be in theaters for like a special thing, and that was pre-scheduled before David Bowie died, so it was not related to that. But I went and watched it in theaters, at that time, and I walked out going, that sucked. Why do people like this?
I have suddenly lost some respect for you.
I mean, to me, my takeaway was the whole movie was about an older man trying to sleep with a 14-year-old girl, and putting her through and kidnapping her daughter or her kid, brother or whatever to convince her to come to his house. It was a really disgusting premise to me.
I think you may have missed it.
So there's going to be two people against you on this, Doc, because because I remember the event that Lurch was going to watch it, and like even before that, and I had the conversation with Lurch that I didn't like it.
You didn't like
either.
Oh wow, I've
Like,
suddenly lost respect for everybody else.
I was in the same boat. Like I saw a part of the movie whenever I was younger, but I never seen the full movie. So like,
remind me
5 or 6
again.
years ago, I watched it for the first time.
Remind me again. How old are you guys?
Huh?
Remind me.
Okay,
So it might be a generational thing.
So Willow, for you, Lurch, to give you context, will be like a smaller, like the stakes aren't as high. Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say, is that a short joke about Warwick Davis? It's the
No, but
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's not. The stakes aren't as high.
Yeah.
So like that's the expectation you should have. Is like it's a wonderful kind of like Middle Eastern older world.
Yeah.
With like magical creatures and like witches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's the expectation you should go into it. Is like
Yeah.
it's not Lord of the Rings, but you should expect that kind of adventure in Winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
that kind
of made me think of like something along the lines of Legend or Neverending Story or the kangaroo ninja movie? I forget the name of it now.
Kangaroo.
Warriors of Virtue or something.
I never did that, but
I know which one.
I guess
Warriors of the Lost Kingdom or whatever. Warriors of the Lost Kingdom is what he's thinking of. Yeah. Okay.
It's whimsical.
Yeah.
You know, there's stakes, but it's also whimsical.
I'm down for it.
I think it's totally
the
generational.
trailers I've seen look good, and the trailers I've seen for the new series looks great. So
you'll love Willow. Even if you don't like Labyrinth, and I still don't understand that, but it's got to be generational because anybody I've ever talked to that's ever watched Labyrinth absolutely adored it.
I do think it's generational because I feel like an older generation than us probably wouldn't we're not when the movie came out as attuned to is there consent happening? What is the creepy stuff happening here?
I don't think it's a generational thing. I think it's an age of when you first watched it. Like how old were you when you first watched it?
When it first came out?
Pre-teens?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone who watched it for the first time as a kid or preteen is probably going to love it, and then won't be able to be swayed from that. But at the first time you watch it, you're like 30. I think you're going to find it disturbing.
I think that's true as well. But I also feel like there's like a lot of like back then whenever that movie was made, there was also like a common archetype that was laughed at and sometimes mimicked was like the quagmire kind of like person who will take advantage of it. You know, like there's a lot of like value stuff that we don't see as value now that used to be like really common.
Well, I mean, like I know a number of people that were like my age or even a little bit younger than me that the first time they watched it, they were a kid or a preteen, and they were growing up.
I agree with that assessment. I think it might be both.
Well, the other thing is none of the concept of the movie, which is what gets me, is the Goblin King was not trying to seduce Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, he was.
No, he wasn't. He was trying to keep her brother.
No. That was to lure her to his palace, but like he outright tells her he wants her to make love to him or what. I don't remember the exact lines, but he's very
He he not only says that, it's clear he wants to like procreate too. It's like really creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Most
Like
of us,
that
I
was
don't think we saw
that was like, wasn't that the whole point of the movie?
Yeah.
No, the point of the movie was, one, to teach her to value her brother instead of wanting to give her brother up, and
No, I mean from like his perspective.
From his perspective, he stole children away, and she gave the child to him through her wish. She was in love with the Goblin King in the background of the story of the play she was going to be in, and she liked the concept of the romanticism of, the mortal being in love with the Goblin King and everything. It wasn't the Goblin King was in love with her. He was trying to convince her to come to his castle to retrieve her brother, but he wanted to keep the brother, was the whole concept of the movie. He wanted her to fail to even make it to the castle. And he was using seduction maybe a little bit to try to distract her from saving her brother.
With a 14-year-old girl.
But it was doing it as distraction, not trying
There's not a whole lot of spinning that. He's seducing a 14-year-old girl.
Well, because how are you going to motivate a 14-year-old girl?
It made me feel gross watching it, especially the ending. Like during that entire confrontation was super creepy.
I don't know. Like I said, part of that is, I'm sure, generational, because it used to be considered okay for an older person to flirt with a younger person with no actual intention if the flirting was a distraction.
I mean, it used to be normal for 50-year-olds to marry 14-year-olds.
That's also true.
My grandmother married a 40-year-old originally. Her very first husband was a 40-year-old when she was 14 years old.
That is also true. Yeah. So that is a societal thing.
Yeah, you're looking at like this generation
that's why
came from parents where that was okay.
But the big part of the movie that everybody liked was the things that you might not have also made connections with. Like David Bowie was a big character for a lot of us, because he was a big musical character for us at that time. The Muppet usage was a huge thing for us. Jim Henson's use of the Muppets in that movie were phenomenal.
I grew up with Jim Henson stuff. I watched Fraggle Rock and the Muppets and
the Dark Crystal
and stuff like that. And was it Baby Muppets?
Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies, yeah.
Muppet Babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with the Pirate Muppet movie. Like that was one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was a creepy
Muppet Treasure
movie.
Island.
Like when you take away all of the when you strip it down to its like barest thing, it's an extremely creepy movie.
I guess
like
it's partly in how you approach it, and we nowadays, I will admit, people approach movies with that in the forefront of their mind, as like, it better not be another one of these kind of movies.
I guess my biggest trouble is the way it gets kind of romanticized. Like I can enjoy a movie fine enough if there's like elements of that, as long as that's not romanticized by the movie. But it was romanticized by the movie, and it's romanticized by the audiences, and it's just
whenever Suicide Squad came out, and like Harley Quinn and Joker like memes were flooding Facebook, and everybody's like, I want a relationship like Harley Quinn has with the Joker, and it's just like I really feel like these people who are romanticizing these extremely toxic or dangerous relationships are hurtful, and I feel like in media, when you portray that as normal or romantic, then that there is a real world correlation between the thing that we consume and the way that we view our world. And like if everybody around you says that this thing is okay, then that becomes okay for you, and then girls find themselves in toxic situations where like. I don't know. It's just like where they want to replay that and have that romantic interaction.
Then again, I don't want to get into too many arguments about it, and we can go forward from this. But in Labyrinth, the Goblin King who's doing these bad things is clearly labeled as the bad guy. So they're showing that he's doing bad things. So they're not making it okay. They're not painting it as okay. They're painting it as not
they're
okay.
like Harley Quinn
But
and
they are
the Joker are
romantic.
bad people.
Yeah, again, they're painting it as not okay. So they are not romanticizing it to that point, because they're saying that it's more of a forbidden or wrong pleasure, not romanticizing it as much as pointing out the forbiddenness of it.
I feel like if you point out something that's forbidden to a young person, they're going to be attracted to that thing.
Yeah, well, that happens.
If I was a gambling man, I would bet that movie is responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of young women sleeping with older men, wanting to live out that fantasy of that movie.
The fact that People Magazine's Sexiest Man of the Year is almost always somebody over the age of 40 is a big reason why girls want to sleep with older men. But
I feel like that probably was true when people read magazines.
Well, now they just get it on the internet, but it's still the same.
Yeah.
Most people know who the Man of the Year is for that. Most women do.
Although, who's in charge of voting for that though? 30 and 40-year-old people, right?
Yeah, a lot of the younger women don't actually participate in those polls. That's true. Until they get to be that age. Anyway,
I have arrived at lab, so I'm going to have to mute myself and take off my camera.
You know what? We're after 10 o'clock. We haven't even talked about She-Hulk or Stargirl. We may have to wait and talk about them next week. Just because it's already 5 after 10, you got to go on mute anyway. So let's postpone them till next week, and we'll just do a double coverage and maybe spend a little bit less time on the other stuff next week and hit media a little bit earlier.
Sure.
At least that's the plan. We almost never follow that plan, but we can try.
Alrighty.
So we're going to say bye to Angel right now. So later, and we'll say our goodbyes.
See you, Angel.
Thank you for having me on. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for being here. And we will say goodbye to everybody as well. I know a lot of people were looking forward to talking about She-Hulk when they watch the replay of this, because most of them don't watch live, of course. It looks like we actually had some talk and chat I completely missed, too. My friend Q from my game Fractured actually said Labyrinth or Crystal Willow. I missed that. And I've watched it 5 times. Doc's right. It wasn't meant to be over-analyzed. Exactly. And Q is not as old as I am, so he's coming from another generation too.
I wouldn't say. I mean, I didn't over-analyze it. It was the. How old were you when you
how
first
you approach
watched it?
Q was older, I'm sure, because it was out longer. Allison was older because she didn't watch a lot of movies when she was younger. It was later before she got to watch it, and it's one of her favorites.
I didn't overanalyze the movie. It was. I was watching the movie, and in the last scene, he's like, "Make love to me and tell me what to do and make me your slave," and all that shit. And I was like, he's trying to get her into BDSM.
No, he's
sex
more than anything, really.
Sex slave thing. Which there's nothing wrong with BDSM stuff, unless it's between a 14-year-old and a old man.
There's a difference between pedophilia and stuff. You also have to remember that even though she's portraying a 14-year-old, Jennifer Connelly was over 21 when she was in that movie, and that
doesn't change who the character was.
I know. And we do that all the time. I mean, even in modern movies, we portray modern movies, modern TV. I mean, look at the characters and stuff like The Vampire Diaries, or
I've never watched that.
True Blood, or things like that. True Blood, Twilight, as much as it's maligned, they romanticize a hundreds-of-year-old person being in love with a teenager.
Yeah.
Any vampire movie does that.
Okay.
Every vampire movie
You bring up the one. Twilight is the one franchise I dog on the most of any movie franchise.
Everybody does.
And one of the reasons is that.
But you know what? Every vampire movie does it. Whether it's a good or a bad vampire movie, it's still a 200-plus-year-old person going after a teenager most of the time. I mean, it really is. It's just that people don't approach it necessarily thinking like Twilight, because Twilight got maligned for a bunch of other things.
Well, my biggest problem with Twilight was, besides it just being really, really, really poorly written and directed, so much of that movie had the girl like trying to kill herself over her boyfriend being gone, and that was just...
Yeah, and as my girlfriend said...
It was romanticizing that kind of thing, I felt like. At least that was the net result.
Yeah.
Twilight's one of the worst movie franchises of the last 20 years, so...
My girlfriend will say it's because vampires don't sparkle.
I mean, sparkle or no sparkle, it's just a bad movie.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't as much that it was a bad book, it was a poorly edited book. The book actually wasn't so bad. The editing was terrible. Her other books, the books in the Twilight series were actually, the story was okay, except for the fact that some people can't handle vampires sparkling because they're weird. But The Host, which was her other book, was actually much better edited and better because of it. Because people often forget that the editor has a huge effect on what the final product comes out as, and poor editing can make a book just seem poor, even if it's got a good story.
Was The Host a set of books that came out after Twilight?
It came out
or was
after
it before?
Twilight, and it was a single book. And it was more of a Close Encounters kind of book instead of a vampire in love with a girl.
If it came out after, then there's no reason to think that she didn't have time to, like...
She got a better
go
editor.
back and study writing and get better at writing, too.
And hire a better editor.
I mean, anytime, I mean, if you're a professional creative, hopefully as you continue doing it, you get better over time.
And that's true. And like I said, the editor was better. If nothing else, she may not have become necessarily a better writer as much as she hired a better editor. Or her editor got better.
It wasn't the editor's decision to have the wolf boy imprint on a baby and decide, when she's like weeks old that's going to be his future wife. Yeah,
but that's cultural to believe to be imprinting with wolves too, because that's actually believed that they imprint at a young age, and often pick their mate before they ever even hit puberty. That's an actual truth in wolf culture, the animal. So it's believed to be by animal scientists. So that was just reflecting the animal part into the human, which is what they're supposed to do in those kind of roles when they anthropomorphize. Is you have to determine how much of the animal you keep and how much of the human you inject. Anyway, we are saying goodbye.
I might have gone overboard a little bit on that.
We're not going to get into the huge debate of Twilight, because there's a lot of people that are anti-Twilight. And although I don't think they were the best movies by any means, the books are maligned a little bit more than they should have been. The movies are actually really horrible, though.
I have learned that the actors in those movies, at least the two stars, aren't as bad at acting as I thought they were.
I still say Pattinson.
Literally everything else I've seen either of them in, they did a much better job. So that's like, this is bad directing.
I have
bad
seen
writing and bad directing.
Better. I have seen Kristen Stewart do better. Pattinson, I still don't think can act. But I know I'm the minority here because you like some of his acting. I don't really. And it's not because I'm judging him from Twilight. It's just that I think he's very wooden and doesn't show any emotion. He's terrible. And my girlfriend thinks the same about Kristen Stewart. I actually have seen her do some decent stuff, though.
Kristen Stewart was pretty great in the Charlie's Angels reboot.
Yeah,
it wasn't a fantastic movie overall, but
her role in it was pretty good. Yeah. And so I don't think she's the most attractive person, and since her character in Twilight was supposed to be like so phenomenally attractive, it really like totally is a disjointed for me. But then again, that's always a matter of taste too. But we're going to get off that subject, and we're still going to go back to saying goodbye for the week. We will
good night.
we will talk about She-Hulk, and we will talk about Stargirl, and have 2 episodes of each to talk about next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Excelsior. Vision.
Fatality. Bye.
Fatality.